Come on, Savannah.
3, 2, 1, face off. Face forward, please, guys. Perfect.
Thanks, boys. Thank you, guys. All right, good.
I wouldn't be that surprised. These are the two best guys in welterweight division, and I think it's a tough fight. But again, we're talking about Islam Makhachev. He's getting a little bit older now, but he's still in his prime. Seen multiple guys say how strong he is. Once he gets older, guys, they don't seem to be able to escape. I can't think at any point that Islam is going to lose. Islam Makhachev.
A lot to talk about for every aspect of this fight. Now, the striking, Ian Gary, what are the obvious things? Very tall, the tallest opponent that Islam has ever faced to date.
Yeah.
Habib and Islam also said that he's very hard to hit because he moves a lot. You know, he tends to run. And Islam said, the only thing in camp that I really haven't enjoyed is having to chase fighters down because we're preparing specifically for Ian and how much he uses the cage and kind of disengages and only really re-engages on his own terms.
Right.
But Islam's also a great striker in his own right. I think because his grappling is so good, he doesn't get a lot of credit for being a really good striker, and he actually is a very good striker. So let's start there. You know, it's going to be open stance mostly, left-handed for Islam, going to be fighting out of southpaw. Ian fights orthodox, so we're going to have an open stance likely for the majority of the fight, which I know you love to break those down.
Yes.
So what are you seeing on the striking in this one?
Yeah, this is really interesting. Ian Gary is obviously a great striker, and that's how he's been able to win most of his fights and get to a title shot. But Islam Makhachev's striking is actually slept on, and it's largely because he comes from Dagestan, and everybody knows Khabib was the guy who set the precedents, and they have great grappling from there. But the Dagestani strikers or fighters are becoming really high-level strikers. Just look at Usman or Magomedov.
More knockouts than any other method of victory.
Exactly. So I am actually loving how Islam's striking is coming along. His kicks are great. He's got really good discipline with his jab hand. So whenever he does throw a combo or closes distance to try to land some strikes, when he exits, he's really good about putting a jab in your face just to sort of keep you at bay. It usually doesn't land, but it's really good to get something out there and in the line of fire from what Ian Gary or anybody else in the past.
JDM, Renato Moicano, Dustin Poirier. As much as Dustin Poirier is a legend of the sport, they're not as dangerous as the guys I've just mentioned. Not only that, every single one of them is bigger, longer. Javkat was 18-0 and 18 finishes when I fought. Carlos Praches had an 11-fight win streak by knockout when I fought him. When I step into this octagon against Islam Makhachev, I'm going to prove to the world why I'm a shadow.
This fight, believing Ian Gary is going to beat Islam, because it's starting to feel that way. Just a little more and a little more. Charles Oliveira, just to throw a name at you, a guy that knows everybody, has the right to an opinion. He said Ian Gary's going to win. That's interesting. Ian Gary is a stand-up fighter from Ireland who idolizes Conor McGregor. So now we know everything we need to know about Ian Gary. He's a sharpshooter. He's going to use his hands. He's going to use his kicks. He can't do any jiu-jitsu. But then somewhere along the way, he started training with Damian Maia. And it was an interesting coincidence because he ended up on bottom against MVP with his back taken, but was never in trouble. So then we're going to go, okay, great. You had problems grappling with this guy, MVP, who's not a grappler. You got real big problems now because you're going to fight Rakhmonov, who's going to expose everything that you don't know. And it turned out that punching and kicking Irish kid had spent some time in the wrestling room, right? I mean, he just looked better than we knew that he was. Enters the 5-round club, deals with it. And one thing that he had to deal with that night, Ian Gary has never fought where he was not bolstered up and he was the guy. Ian Gary's never done a ring walk where the audience knew this guy's overwhelmed. He's done that to other guys, but he's not been in that position. How does the guy do? Guys act one way when they're the favorite, but they seldomly act the same way as an underdog and vice versa. Some guys will do their best work as underdog. Some guys actually get drawn down when you got an audience saying, I don't know, this could be a hard one. That seeps into them. But it didn't seep into Gary. So how are you going to beat it?
Oh, man, that fight. When is going to be that fight? October, I think? October, August? So, man, it's hard to be against Islam Makhachev, you know? I think he's super good. Looks like the division fits perfect to him. Ian Gary has an amazing footwork, amazing head movement, a really good distance. But I don't know, man. I think I'm going with Islam Makhachev.
Someone gave you $10,000 right now to bet on that fight. Where are you putting it?
I think the odds, because of the style, favors Makhachev probably. You know, stylistically, he's a freaking nightmare to fight for anyone. Is I think right now the best pound for pound on the planet. But Ian Gary definitely has all the chance also on his side to do it. He's a very good striker. He's very long. He's great grappling, a great grappler as well. But he need, I think, to find a way to keep the fight standing, you know, like, and to use his style.
With just 3 days remaining before Islam Makhachev and Ian Gary collide at UFC 330, the hype has officially turned into intense scrutiny. Every training session is finished. Every prediction is being dissected, and every fighter reaction suddenly seems to carry enormous weight. The biggest question remains: can Ian Gary create the kind of fight that completely disrupts Islam Makhachev's rhythm, or will Islam impose his own style before Gary gets comfortable? Analysts have stressed that this matchup is incredibly difficult to assess because countless layers are involved, including distance, timing, wrestling, clinch exchanges, defensive reactions, cardio, composure, and adaptability. As the face-off nears, even body language, eye contact, and confidence are being picked apart. But seasoned observers understand that a face-off cannot predict the actual result. Instead, it offers a glimpse into how both fighters are handling the pressure. Islam Makhachev has built his reputation on dictating where and how fights unfold, smoothly connecting different areas of MMA into one nightmare of a challenge. He can threaten with strikes, force reactions, close the distance, enter the clinch, and launch takedowns, making his multifaceted attack brutally difficult to defend against. Meanwhile, Ian Gary brings a completely different problem, using his range to make opponents miserable. He specializes in controlling distance, creating reactions, and making opponents reach toward him instead of letting them settle into their preferred positions. The tactical battle over who controls the geography of the fight could be absolutely crucial. If Gary keeps everything at range, forcing Islam to repeatedly reset while burning energy, he could make the champion work much harder than expected. But if Islam cuts off Gary's exits and establishes his preferred distance, the entire equation changes. Patience may become a major weapon because both fighters have plenty of reasons to frustrate the other before fully committing to a strategy. The wrestling battle is another giant storyline, because Islam's grappling threat can completely alter his opponent's striking stance, movement, and defensive reactions. Gary has to make Islam regret every takedown attempt, forcing him to spend energy without earning clean control. If Gary successfully defends the grappling, the matchup could become even more complicated as the rounds continue. Cardio is another huge factor because wrestling exchanges and repeated takedown defense drain energy differently from pure striking exchanges. The fighter who looks fresher late may not necessarily have entered with superior cardio. They could simply have spent less energy fighting the battle they never wanted. Composure matters just as much because one mistake can instantly change a fight at this level. A fighter may enter with a flawless game plan, only to abandon it completely after getting hurt. Staying emotionally controlled could therefore matter just as much as physical ability, making face-off reactions interesting but hardly decisive. For Gary, the pressure is massive because victory would represent a major upset and completely reshape the conversation surrounding his career. For Islam, the stakes are equally enormous because another successful defense would further strengthen the argument that his style remains one of MMA's toughest puzzles. The broader professional sentiment is that both men possess realistic routes to victory. The problem is that those routes could not look more different. Gary's perfect scenario keeps distance firmly on his side, while Islam's ideal fight creates almost the exact opposite situation, with Gary constantly worrying about takedowns and defending the clinch. As UFC 330 gets closer, predictions are pouring in. Still, those predictions need to be handled carefully. The urge to pick a winner based purely on reputation, or assume the fighter with a more complicated game automatically has the edge, is tempting. But MMA is brutally unpredictable, and styles, timing, preparation, and adaptation can completely rewrite expectations. Whoever recognizes the opponent's adjustments first could eventually seize control. In this matchup, Islam owns a very clear path to victory through pressure, positional control, and relentless grappling. Gary, however, has a legitimate opportunity if he maintains distance, repeatedly forces Islam to reset, and punishes predictable entries. If Islam establishes consistent control, he could transform those brief moments into much longer sequences. But if Gary keeps the fight standing and forces Islam to work just to enter striking range, this matchup could become far more competitive than many predictions suggest. And that uncertainty is exactly why these final 3 days are so fascinating, because soon all the theories will disappear, the strategies will be tested, and both game plans will finally collide once the UFC 330